In a move that revives a historic name, President Donald Trump signed an executive order yesterday renaming the Department of Defense as the Department of War. The signing, which took place in the Oval Office, marks a significant symbolic shift in how the administration frames the nation's military posture. The president stated, quote, "I think it's a much more appropriate name, especially in light of where the world is right now," end quote, while also praising the strength of the U.S. military and its equipment. This change is largely titular and does not require an act of Congress for its main implementation. While the Pentagon building itself will retain its name, the Department of Defense can now be secondarily referred to as the Department of War. Consequently, the current Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, can use the secondary title of Secretary of War. This harks back to the original name for the department, which was established in 1789 and known as the Department of War until 1947. Following World War II, the National Security Act of 1947 deigned to Chimenoy 7 reorganized the military structure, creating the National Military Establishment, which was then renamed the Department of Defense in 1949, reflecting a post-war shift in mission from active warfare to strategic defense and deterrence. The administration's move suggests a return to a more direct and assertive linguistic framing of the military's purpose. That was not the only executive order signed on September 5th. President Trump also took action on the trade front, signing an order that modifies the scope of reciprocal tariffs. The new directive introduces the possibility of tariff rate reductions for what the White House is calling aligned partners. These are nations that agree to reciprocal trade and security deals with the United States. The order aims to refine the broad tariff strategy announced in April, creating a more flexible system that rewards allies while maintaining pressure on others. According to a White House fact sheet, the move is necessary to protect America's economic and national security. A key component of the order is the exclusion of certain items from the reciprocal tariffs. These exemptions include bullion-related articles like gold and silver, certain critical minerals essential for technology and defense manufacturing, and some pharmaceutical products. The exempted pharmaceuticals and minerals are currently under Section 232 investigations, which are conducted to determine the national security implications of relying on imports for these goods. By excluding them from the new tariff structure, the administration appears to be insulating critical domestic supply chains from potential trade disruptions, while it continues to assess long-term vulnerabilities. The order signals a more nuanced approach to the administration's tariff policy, creating pathways for favored nations to receive preferential treatment based on their willingness to forge deeper economic and security ties with Washington. Beyond shaping policy from the Oval Office, the administration's agenda is also being carried out in large-scale enforcement actions. A massive raid led by the Department of Homeland Security has targeted the construction site of a new Hyundai battery plant near Savannah, Georgia. Homeland Security Investigations, or HSI, confirmed that 475 individuals, primarily from South Korea, were arrested for being in the country illegally. The operation has brought construction at the battery plant to a halt. The raid is particularly notable because the facility was previously celebrated by former President Joe Biden in 2022 as a major victory for American manufacturing that would create over 8,000 new American jobs. The project, a partnership between Hyundai and LG Energy Solution, was intended to bolster electric vehicle development in the United States. In a statement, Hyundai said that none of the individuals detained were directly employed by the company, suggesting they worked for subcontractors on the site. LG Energy Solution stated it will fully cooperate with authorities. This incident brings renewed scrutiny to worksite practices, particularly on large-scale construction projects, and is a high-profile example of the Trump administration's intensified focus on worksite enforcement as a key pillar of its immigration policy. An HSI spokesperson described the situation as a complex case that required coordination between multiple federal agencies and the Georgia State Patrol. While federal agents enforce immigration law on the ground, legal and constitutional debates continue at the nation's highest court, where Justice Amy Coney Barrett is offering a rare look inside the institution. With her new memoir, Listening to the Law, set for release next week, Justice Barrett spoke at a public event about her nearly 5 years on the Supreme Court. She described her start as very awkward, noting her confirmation process occurred during the COVID-19 pandemic, stripping it of the usual ceremony. She spoke warmly of her colleagues, who she said lent her staff and supplies as she set up her chambers. Justice Barrett also addressed the court's controversial use of its emergency, or shadow, docket. This process, which allows the court to issue rapid, unsigned orders without full briefings or oral arguments, has been used frequently to rule on emergency requests from the Trump administration. The court's 6-3 conservative majority has sided with the administration in most of these cases, allowing policies on military service, education grants, and federal employment to proceed despite lower court rulings. Barrett defended the process cautiously, stating the court is at its best when reviewing fully adjudicated cases, but she largely sidestepped the controversy. She also pushed back against the idea that the court is political, arguing there is a disconnect between what people want in the moment and what the law requires. When asked about a pointed exchange with Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson in an opinion earlier this year, Barrett described her remarks as an attempt to set the calibration right in response to a strong argument. Dismissing fears of a constitutional crisis, she asserted that the country remains committed to the rule of law. Recounting her decision to accept the nomination, she shared her husband's advice to burn the boats, a reference to eliminating any option for retreat, a mindset she said was essential for enduring the confirmation process. From the high-profile decisions of the Supreme Court, we turn to the day-to-day functions of a federal agency that touches millions of American lives. The Social Security Administration is now the subject of a new audit by its own watchdog. The agency's Office of the Inspector General has initiated an investigation into the SSA's customer service and its notoriously long wait times. The probe was launched last month following a request from Senator Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts, whose office made the Inspector General's response letter public this week. For years, the public has voiced growing frustration with the agency, citing immense difficulty in reaching representatives by phone, long lines at field offices, and significant delays in the processing of claims and appeals. These issues affect a wide range of beneficiaries, including retirees, individuals with disabilities, and surviving family members. In the letter to Senator Warren, Acting Inspector General Michelle Anderson expressed her expectation that the audit will be completed before the end of this calendar year. She noted that she has already discussed the issues raised by the senator with the agency's commissioner. While the audit will focus on the metrics the SSA uses to measure wait times, it implicitly highlights systemic problems that have plagued the agency for over a decade, including chronic underfunding, significant staffing shortages, and reliance on outdated technology. Critics argue these factors have severely hampered the SSA's ability to serve the public effectively, and the results of this audit will be closely watched by lawmakers and the public alike for recommendations on how to improve this critical service.